Today is Thursday, June 16th, 2022. At 7:30, I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Clawson to order. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Nick, could you take roll, please?
Mr. Hildebrandt? Ms. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Sinaki?
Present.
Ms. Cindy Smith?
Here.
Ms. Diane Smith?
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the regular meeting minutes from February 17th of 2022. As I recall, there was a few inches of snow on the ground, quite a bit different than today.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes as published for February 17th to 2022.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Or third.
I have a motion and a second. Nick, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Cindy Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Diane Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sinaki?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the request for variances for maximum wall sign size and maximum number of wall signs at 131 South Crooks, which is the Taco Bell site. Is there somebody to speak to this?
Joan Horton, filling in today for Mr. Tangeri. So you have the variance review that Joe wrote, and this applicant is requesting variances from the number of signs and the sign area standards of the sign ordinance. They're proposing to replace the two existing 29 square foot wall signs located on the north and the west faces of the building, the west face being the front of the building. Replacing those with two signs that are 23.5 square feet each, and proposing to add an additional 23.5 square foot wall sign on the south side of the building. The sign ordinance permits one wall sign for properties fronting on Crooks Road and up to 50 square feet of total area. As such, the number of wall signs on the building and the total area of wall signs are both non-conforming at present. Section 36(3) of the sign ordinance governs non-conforming signs and calls for their removal. So they are requesting a variance from Section 36(9), which establishes the maximum number of wall signs to be one for any development site with one or more buildings in this location. The same section establishes 50 square feet as the maximum permitted area of wall signs within 149 of the right-of-way. The applicant seeks variances to have two additional signs for a total of 3 signs and to have a total wall sign area of 70.5 square feet instead of the maximum 50 square feet. They are proposing to increase the overall number and total area of wall signs on the site. However, both the area and number will continue to exceed the permitted maximums for the location. They provided a written statement with the application outlining the context of the request, stating that due to corporate rebranding, the applicant must replace the current signs with the new ones measuring 23.5 square feet. The applicant cited safety benefits of increased identification signage for traffic flow and mentions an increase in traffic in the area. Additionally noted is their location on a corner fronting Crooks Road, and the service entrance to the shopping center increases the need for additional signs, specifically the one on the north facade. Note that this is not the intersection of two rights-of-way, but a right-of-way and a private driveway. Per section 34(7.15)D of the zoning ordinance, a non-use dimensional variance may be allowed by the Zoning Board of Appeals only in cases involving practical difficulties when the evidence in the official record of an appeal supports the following findings. First finding is the practical difficulties are exceptional and peculiar to the property of the person requesting the variance and results from conditions which do not generally exist throughout the city. The practical difficulties, number 2, is the practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance includes substantially more than mere inconvenience or inability to attain a higher financial return. Number 3 is allowing the non-use dimensional variance will result in substantial justice being done, considering the public benefits intended to be secured by this article, the individual hardships that will be suffered by a failure of the board to grant a variance, and the rights of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of the variance. Number 4, the variance did not arise from the actions of the applicant or previous landowner. Number 5, the requested variance is not based solely on financial need or circumstances. It also provides that the board shall impose such conditions and requirements in connection with any decision to grant a non-use dimensional variance as it shall deem reasonable to minimize any potential detrimental effects of its decision and to promote the purpose of this article on which justifiably arises from the circumstances of the request. So in summary, the variance of 20.5 square feet from the maximum permitted wall sign to allow for signs to be displayed on the northwest and south facades of the building. A variance of 2 signs from the permitted number of wall signs to allow replacement of the existing wall signs on the north and west facades that are non-conforming in terms of total number of signs, and an additional sign to be placed on the south facade. There is a representative here from Phillips Sign Company who has turned in the application. If you would like to hear from them. If you have any questions before hearing from him, Ronis, City Attorney, is here to answer any questions.
I have no questions at this time.
I have a question. Did the applicant come in and do a pre-review for signage with the city building department, or?
We don't do we do a review, which is what they were aware of what the requirements were for signage, and decided to do a variance for the reasons that they stated, that they needed more signage, and that part of it was because of corporate change.
Okay, I just wanted to make certain that there was no other discussion that should have been brought up from the city's aspect at this time.
No.
Okay, thank you.
They were aware that they were going to need a variance, and that followed that process, and Joe wrote the review letter for them, which they did receive. Would you like to hear from the applicant?
I guess we're ready.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Joan.
Steve, you're on.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Bretz, and I'm with Phillips Sign and Lighting. And I came tonight to present pretty much what was just presented. I think she did a fantastic job of explaining everything. The only thing that I brought along in addition was a handout of a aerial view of the property. If you want to see that, it maybe help to explain it a little bit better.
Okay,
So I can give you those.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that just shows the property from the air, obviously, and
The panels, it's acceptable on a conforming sign.
On a conforming sign.
On a
This is
conforming sign.
non-conforming sign. To make any change to a non-conforming sign means that it has to become conforming, and pole signs are not.
Correct.
So they decided to leave it.
So from a signage perspective, with a pretty substantial non-conforming pole sign out front, how do you justify the need for more wall signage on the south side? You're going to see that non-conforming tall sign long before you ever get to the point of seeing the side of the building. So, then, Madam Chair, we had on Tuesday's Planning Commission some preliminary discussion about our rearranging our sign ordinance and doing things to be more up to date with respect to the fact that it's not just back illuminated signs anymore. There's video and all that other kind of stuff. And then there was a lot of discussion about the fact that our ordinance currently allows one wall sign. And this particular property, although I'm not going to say whether or not anything is correct, but this particular property has, all four faces of the building visible to the customers because it's in an island, and just right next door in the large shopping center where you might have a single business with only really one frontage to the customer, only one real entrance or whatever. We currently have the same sign requirement. One sign, 50 square feet, that's all you get. I understand that Taco Bell didn't want to take down their pole sign, but our general scenario is that the atmosphere of Clawson has been to get away from the large signs because we're now basically a bedroom community, and we'd like to have signage, but have it more in the small city type of scenario where we don't have large pole signs. So,
Ed, can I interrupt you just for a second?
Certainly.
Can somebody go tell him to shut the door? It's really loud. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
so I guess
Sorry.
with respect to signage, with Taco Bell coming to you, this is a little bit difficult because you're just taking instructions, and you did a nice job of explaining the signage perspective from your perspective and probably the perspective of the owner, but it's not really looking at all the signage on the property. So it's kind of hard when a company says, well, I got to change everything else, but I got something non-conforming that I don't want to spend money on, and I don't want to go any different because there's maybe some perception that these tall pole signs really bring in a lot more business than a monument sign. So on this property, and this is where it's difficult to talk to a subcontractor, not the actual applicant. You have a non-conforming pole sign that you're not going to do anything with. You already have two non-conforming signs. You are making them smaller, but you're asking for a third. And then when you do that, you actually go over the square footage requirements. So how is this meeting several of those criteria of not being self-created and being very unique to the property, not merely to gain additional financial advantage? It's an opinion that another sign will help traffic. But then again, I walk that and I've driven it, and you see the pole sign long before you see anything on the south side of the building. Although,
Is it
Every-
possible to make a
contingency for a variance granted for the third wall sign when you take that pole sign down? Is that an option?
Well, if, from my perspective, and I don't know if I'm
Well, when
supposed
you
to
guys
answer,
were
but
chatting about planning commission, that's what I'm asking in reference to,
Well-
was any of that discussed?
looking at the overall perspective, if you look at the building and you look at the fact that it has basically 4 visible wall surfaces for, you can come from any direction. So, and in my opinion, based upon the fact that basically the left hand and the north side and the south side of the building are kind of the same design. One is a sign and a logo and the other is blank, probably because they couldn't get somebody to give them a variance from before. And then I would say that that's what I would propose to the owner, that you might come up with a better aesthetically compromising and better situation. And if the owner said, well, gee whiz, I've lowered my sign from 15 feet, and I don't know what it is, but so many feet down to the 8 feet that's allowed for a monument sign, I get a little bit less visibility, and so would a wall sign on the south side that kind of matches the one on the north that kind of looks like it should be there. So, yeah, we could make it contingent, but we don't have an agreement from the actual director of this project, which is the Taco Bell ownership, to say, what they propose that they want to do. And I guess our task here now is just to say, what are we going to allow? What is reasonable, given the circumstances that's going on today?
My question too, though, is it says, due to corporate rebranding, the applicant must replace the current signs. If that doesn't happen, does the applicant lose his, is it a franchise? Does he lose his license? Is he not allowed to do business there anymore? Are we getting in the way of someone continuing? That's not indicated here. So I'm curious about that. And can he just
Well,
replace the 2 current ones with the new rebranding?
Well, you could certainly replace the one on the front or the one on the side.
What my question is, do
choosing.
they need 3? Is that part of the rebranding that they're being forced? I don't know if that's the word, but to do.
An excellent question that is
Nobody's hearing the answer.
probably not in the capability of Mr. Steve here to
Right.
answer, because he's the subcontractor.
Right.
He's not the owner management of this particular property, who's giving the direction to Philip Sign to do the work.
Do you know the answer to that
I
question?
don't know the
Okay.
answer. I
Okay.
wouldn't be able to answer that.
Okay,
no.
all right.
He describes that perfectly.
Yeah.
Are the signs that are being proposed, I know we're saying new branding, but will they have the same Bell and the Taco Bell sign? It's kind of hard to tell from
Yeah,
the
they're very
exhibit
similar.
here.
It's just, they're going to more of a purple color. I think the color is changing, darker, purple,
Okay.
and then it is
Might be
smaller.
able to see it a little bit better on a bigger screen.
Oh, no, I had it up in my one at home, and I was just like, I don't
Oh, okay.
understand what is trying to be
It looks like
ascertained here.
It looks like subtle differences.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm not the marketing manager at Taco Bell.
Yeah,
I'm just
I know,
curious as
I know.
to what was going on.
So from a perspective, is your understanding that you need a decision today?
I believe so, yes. That's what we're looking for.
Well, we usually get a facial expression from the real directors, the owners in this case. And if you take a look at it right now, and Diane will probably re-explain this, but 3 of us have to be in the affirmative to
make any action here today valid. You're entitled to a full board of 5 to basically get 3 out of 5 as opposed to 3 out of 4. So at that point in time, it's you're right to say, I need a full board for this discussion, so therefore, I'm going to wait for the full board. And usually the applicant gets some idea based upon the discussion and questions from the members of the ZBA here as to if things are going sufficiently well towards their request, or if things are a little bit in the negative and going against their request. So,
So our full board is 5 members, and so, one person is missing today.
No.
So a vote has to be at least 3 members, vote in the affirmative. You have until the time we call for the vote to ask that it be tabled. So that's why Ed was making comments about you can see the deliberation and then make a decision before we take the vote. But once we take the vote and we vote, it is final.
Okay. Yeah, is there an opinion that you have?
How about I help you?
Sure.
I'm here to help them.
Oh.
Well, I'm the city attorney. You're fine. You're fine. Good evening, and thank you for having me. I haven't been in front of this board, I think, God knows, a long time. Anyways, so it's good to see everybody in person. I think Mr. Sanagi is absolutely correct, and at the same time, while I was nodding my head earlier, I was nodding my head because there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I think you're exactly describing that process, that perhaps we need to table it for the time being, so that we may reach out to the owners and perhaps come back to this board, the owners come back to this board with the same but improved request upon you. And perhaps we'll be a lot closer to accomplishing the task that we seek to accomplish today, if that makes sense. You will not get your decision today, but you'll be closer to it, believe it or not. And with respect to the question that you asked earlier, the answer is, yeah, we can get closer to the parameters of our ordinance, even anticipating perhaps some of the changes that we may see forthcoming on account of reasonability that we'll see here with respect to our ordinance, which needs an update. And I think it'll be beneficial both to us as a city as well as to the applicant. Obviously, they're going to be there. Obviously, this is important to them. At the same time, obviously, we cannot redesign the city based on corporate needs necessarily, but we'll be understanding, I presume. That's why this board exists after all, to accommodate, the requests above and beyond the law. So I think there's a way to bridge that gap between the wishes of the board as well as the applicant. So I would, my suggestion would be, table it, refer it forward. Joan and I, and perhaps with Joe, obviously, will be able to reach out and have that conversation worth having.
I would like to kind of summarize a little bit of what we said today and put it into the record and have us vote on agreement for what we said today.
Absolutely.
And then that way, when we start over again, I think we would have a little bit better of a baseline for what to do.
Do you have notes there?
Okay. Would you like to suggest something, Ed?
Well,
As far
you
as
probably have to open and close the public hearing.
Oh, okay. You're right. So it's 7:57. I'm going to open a public hearing. Is there anybody here wishing to speak on behalf of this applicant or regarding this matter? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to establish at least some findings of fact concerning the request for a variance for the number of signs and sign area at 131 South Crooks, zoning district B3, the Taco Bell. Findings of facts I'd like to propose to our chair is that an existing sign on a facade on one of the faces is currently 29 square feet, and they're going down to 23 square feet, which is directionally correct in terms of our current number of square feet. And I think the other thing that I would like to propose as a finding of fact is that because this particular property is basically on an island with either parking lot traffic or some sort of access traffic or road traffic on all four signs, that the sign visibility, at least on the west, north, and south, is probably beneficial. And the third thing is that the north and the south, which basically are now our non-conforming number of signs, the facade of the building is basically the same, one with sign in the logo and the other without. So that should be for consideration as we look at the total overall signage and request for variance.
Okay. Do you mind if I add a findings of fact that they have an existing non-conforming pole sign that they wish to remain?
Yes, that's great. That their current application states will remain as is.
There's no mention of it at all.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just
Okay, just that there's a non-conforming
pole
Well,
sign.
pole sign that was not addressed in the application.
On that variant, maybe to say that the zoning board needs confirmation on the applicant's intent for the existing non-conforming pole sign, because it wasn't documented in the application. And that would be, I think, the right thing. And
Okay.
yes, I appreciate that. I forgot about that.
Okay.
Well, especially considering you brought it up as perhaps a point that we could consider
Yes.
later.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Are there any more additions, suggestions from the board?
No.
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. All right, so we have some findings of fact that were presented, at least for today's portion of the meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept I have 4 findings of fact regarding the property at 131 South Crooks, Taco Bell.
Okay, thank you,
That's probably the
Jennifer.
second, right? Because it was my motion to
Oh, you're right.
enumerate those.
Then I
So you
second that
second.
motion.
All
And that's
right.
great.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Jennifer. So we have a motion and a second. Nick, can you take the roll, please?
Mr. Sinaki,
Yes.
Miss Cindy Smith,
Yes.
Miss Diane Smith,
Yes.
Miss Perkins.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Rennis, do we have to make a motion to table this?
Yeah, procedurally, I would recommend that procedurally, so that, a quick motion to table.
Okay, all right. Can I have a motion
Do
to
you agree
table
with that?
today's?
The motion would be is we would make a motion to table this to the next meeting, and the applicant agrees with the tabling.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to table the matter.
okay. So I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Nick, can you call a roll, please?
Ms. Diane Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Stanaki,
Yes.
Ms. Cindy Smith.
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
carries.
Thank you. So that portion of the agenda was tabled, I guess for possibly July's meeting.
On our end, we'll move expeditiously. I just got Steve's card, he's gonna put me in touch with the owners, and I presume we probably have that information anyways. And so, absolutely, by July, we'll have our portion of it, we promise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Put him on the
Appreciate your
hot
time.
seat.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the election of officers.
Didn't we do that last month or February?
I thought we did that in February.
In the Snowmageddon meeting?
Well, there was not many of us here.
That was the day I was challenged with my technology.
I was not at that meeting, but I believe that was done. Let me just
It's in the
double
minutes.
check. It is in the
It's
minutes?
in the
Okay.
minutes.
Then, I mean, I imagine that might have just been a carryover from the
Yeah,
previous
a
agenda.
copy-paste situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So then, I think you can probably just move on without any motions.
okay. All right, and next item on the agenda is a public discussion. Seeing nobody from the public, I will move on. Is there any other business for the board today?
I do not believe so.
Okay. All right, any business from the board members?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn
Support?
and support. Nick, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Sanaki,
Yes.
Ms. Cindy Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Diane Smith.
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.